He is the co-founder of Most Valuable Promotions. You may have heard they had a pretty big night on Friday, quite historic stuff emanating from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. He is Nakisa Bidarian, and he's kind enough to join us right now. There he is. Hello, Nakisa. Are you in a children's classroom? Where are you right now?
I'm not. I'm in my office in my home.
Wow, this is amazing. It's good to see you, my friend. I just saw the thing, but now I'm seeing some of the words back there. Stream, Tyson, Paul. I like it very much. It's great to have you. Let me go through some of the facts and figures here, the actual facts, if I may, and congratulate you and the team on, as I said, a historic night. Correct me if I'm wrong with any of these. $18.1 million gate. A little over 72,300 fans in attendance at AT&T Stadium. It is the biggest gate for any boxing or MMA event outside the city of Las Vegas. It is the 9th highest combat sports gate ever in U.S. history and set a record as the highest grossing gate at AT&T Stadium for a combat sports event. Prior to that, we had Canelo Alvarez fighting at AT&T Stadium. His gate, 9 million. As for the actual viewing numbers, 65 million live concurrent streams on Netflix, most streamed global sporting event ever. Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, the most watched professional women's sports event in U.S. history. 38 million concurrent streams for the main event alone. And one big number, of course, 108 million live viewers globally from the opening to closing bell, and continued throughout the weekend with an estimated AMA, which stands for average minute audience of 125 million. 74 million watched Taylor Serrano. I could go on, but those seem to be the big numbers. Am I missing a significant one?
You missed two big ones.
Okay.
One of them is, and that number is right behind me, 56% of the households at midnight to 1 a.m. Eastern, so 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Pacific, who had TVs on, were watching Paul versus Tyson. So 1 out of every 2 homes that had TVs on was watching this event, which is pretty amazing. It reminds me of the days of Globo in Brazil on broadcast TV when Anderson Silva would fight, and there will be that kind of market share. Secondly, we broke the record for commercial pay-per-view distribution. So that's bars and restaurants paying to show this event because they can't use just a residential Netflix account. Previous record was held by Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor. Now that record is owned by Paul, Tyson, Taylor Serrano too.
Obviously, you believed in the fight. Obviously, you had high expectations, lofty expectations. But truthfully, have these numbers exceeded your expectations? Are you blown away by these types? This is, in a day and age where you have so many streaming platforms and everything is so splintered in the internet and second screen experiences, to see the world come together and watch one singular event broadcast, very rare in 2024, as you know. Are you surprised by any of these numbers?
So going into it, I had two main goals, which I spoke about several times internally, and then in a couple of interviews that I did. Goal number one was to break the U.S. streaming record for any form of content. The record was made earlier this year on Peacock for an NFL playoff game. That was 23 million concurrent streams. The second goal was to have the most viewed women's sporting event in U.S. history. The record held was Women's World Cup, I think 1999, on Fox broadcast television. And so I was confident we would exceed those numbers, and we did. I think the scale at which we exceeded them is beyond what I expected. And obviously, I'm very happy with the outcome, as is everyone at MVP, as are the fighters, as is Netflix.
When you and Netflix first spoke about this, was it more a question of you pitching the idea of Jake versus Mike on Netflix, or was it Netflix saying, hey, we like the idea of Jake, but we need a dance partner that is big enough for Netflix, and so what about Mike Tyson? What came first, essentially?
It was definitely us giving them a list of different names, and Mike Tyson being one of those names.
Okay.
So the deal was signed, as I've been on record, with MVP and Jake Paul being the first ever live professional sporting event on Netflix, with an opponent to be agreed upon, and we had several names within that list.
Obviously, there were the streaming, the buffering issues. Is that a gift and a curse? How do you process that? How do you digest that? Because on the one hand, it's a byproduct of all these people trying to watch at the same time. But on the other hand, you want everyone to watch the event, and that becomes a story on Saturday morning. So when you are hearing about it in real time and when you are processing it after the fact, how are you digesting that information?
I think first and foremost, we broke the internet. We did something that has never been done before. The record for streaming in the US was 23 million concurrents, right? We blew past that. So Netflix has shown that it has an ability to do things that no other media platform has done before. Secondly, Netflix is always advancing the boundaries of content consumption. They've been doing that for many years, and this was another example of that. They did a better job, Ariel, than any media partner that I've ever seen in promoting this event, both in their own channels and in terms of third-party marketing spend. It was it was a tremendous execution of bringing attention, eyeballs, and awareness to one specific live event, and they deserve all the credit in the world. And the biggest credit that anyone can get who's a public company is how their stock price acts after such a monumental moment for their company. And as you will see, as has been discussed by many financial analysts, their stock is up meaningfully since last Friday night. So investors loved what they saw.
So many takes in the aftermath. I would love to ask you I mean, we can't address all of them, but people have been critical. Black eye for boxing. This was not great. Shame on you. How dare you? That negative stuff that you've seen afterwards. What is your overall take on all of this stuff that you've heard from people in the general sports world, in the just general world, and of course in the boxing world?
Look, if you don't see how this was the greatest moment in boxing history for the past 20, 30 years, then you're not a brand builder and you're not someone who's focused on the growth of the sport long term. And you're stuck in this little small niche corner of sports called boxing that exists. More people got to witness this sport than they have since the days of Muhammad Ali. There was a card that offered something for every single type of consumer. And one of our biggest objectives, as you know, going in was to give women the platform that they deserved. And did Amanda Serrano and Katie deliver, or did they deliver? I mean, there's little girls I see videos of now putting on boxing gloves and saying, I'm going to be Katie Taylor, I'm going to be Amanda Serrano. I think we did a huge service to the sport of boxing. Netflix did a massive service to the sport of boxing by giving it the exposure, giving it the engagement, giving it the conversation. So 6 different generations were talking about this, but Generation Alpha was engaged in our sport. And even if 1% of those kids hang out and become boxing fans, and some of them actually pick up boxing gloves, that's a massive win. And if you're going to say, well, the fight wasn't the greatest fight, you know what? There's lots of fights that aren't the greatest fights. There's lots of games that are blowouts. There's lots of baseball games that are lopsided. There's tennis matches where somebody wins three sets to none, 6-love, 6-love, 6-love. It wasn't about that one specific fight. It's about what the event was for the sport. Even with that fight, I'm extremely, extremely ecstatic with the performance that Mike and Jake put on. And I say that from different angles. Mike was 58 years old going back into the ring. And as you know, many of your peers, many boxing professionals, many MMA professionals actually said Mike's going to kill Jake Paul, right? Many of them. Francis Ngannou, Lennox Lewis, Daniel Cormier. Yeah, I can go down a list of name after name of someone that said he's going to catch him, he's going to kill him, right? Lennox Lewis actually was on record saying he's scared for Jake Paul. Like, Jake Paul is going to get hurt. This is not fair. Flip side, there was many people that said Jake Paul is too young and he's gonna annihilate Mike Tyson. Imagine being 27 years old in your 4th year as a professional with no amateur experience, and you're walking into a stadium with 72,000 people, and you're cool, you're calm, you're composed, and you perform under those bright lights against the baddest man on the planet who just slapped you the day before in front of the whole world to see. And you became a meme overnight because of that slap. I am beyond proud of what Jake did that night in the ring. I mean, he showed that he is truly arrived in the sport of boxing from my perspective. And he countered anything that Mike Tyson could do in terms of being able to actually reach and connect with Jake.
What did you think of the fight?
I thought it was as I expected it to be. That early on, Mike was very dangerous, and as it went on, his stamina would lessen, even though there were 2-minute rounds, and Jake would have an opportunity to win on points.
In the post-fight press conference, Jake essentially said that he kind of, took his foot off the gas, right? Because he felt like, the job was done and he didn't want to hurt Mike even more. Did you get that sense as you were watching it live?
Oh, I actually think John Jones gave the best explanation. I don't know if you saw that or not at his press conference post
Tell us. Yeah.
UFC had a fight the night after that I'm sure you covered well, but he actually said the right thing. Like Jake stopped taking risks because he didn't want to be the recipient of a massive punch from Mike Tyson that could end his night, right? He played a defensive game for the back latter half of that fight. Very smart on Jake's part. There was no reason to take a risk and end up flatlined. And that can happen any moment in this sport, as you know.
When you heard in the build up to this fight people saying, "Oh my God, you're sending good old Mike Tyson out to slaughter at 58. How dare you? You should be ashamed of yourself." When you heard that, I'm just wondering how you processed it and then are processing now people saying, "Well, why didn't you kill Mike Tyson? Why didn't you knock out Mike Tyson?" Because it does sort of feel, if I'm being honest, that the same people who are saying that today were the same ones saying, "Shame on you for stepping in there with him because you're going to kill the man."
Look, I think I said this to you on your show when I was on there. I forget when it was.
July.
Age was the equalizer here for me, right? There was a significant experience gap between these two men. Mike said it himself. He has more amateur fights than Jake has pro fights. And I always felt like it was not going to be someone on the Jake side just obliterating Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's a big, strong man. If you stood next to him and shook his hand, one hand of his is two hands of Jake's, right? Like his neck is extremely thick. Like he's built like a warrior. And he's been built that way since he was 13. Look at the picture of Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson at age 13. So I always viewed this as a fairly even fight in many ways, given where Jake's experience level is. I mean, I know, Jake wants to be a champion, and I believe he will be, and I believe he'll be a champion sooner than people expect. But Mike Tyson's one of the greatest boxers of all time, and he's going in there in his 12th fight against him, 4 years experience. Tony Blue or whatever his last name is, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name.
Bellew.
Look at who he fought in his 12th fight. He fought a guy that was 9-21 in front of nobody. Nobody cared. Nobody watched. And that guy he fought ended his career at 10-28. Is that a tougher fight? Or is fighting Mike Tyson, who yes is 58, but you're Jake Paul, a tougher fight under the big lights, on the biggest streaming moment in history of sports? Like it's not even on the same playing field. So I don't. The only thing that bothers me is the continued kind of narrative and people saying the fight was rigged. I saw something from Michael Irvin, who was
the football player.
He was on the broadcast. He actually sat there with Jerry Jones. I saw something this week where he's like, "Oh yeah, I saw the contract and Mike couldn't throw an uppercut." Like, are you? I'm concerned that there's a CTE problem there for Michael Irvin, because how would you see the contract to begin with that Mike Tyson couldn't throw an uppercut? I mean, it's beyond lunacy and the realm of like just reality of life. This was a regulated professional bout by the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, the Texas Athletic Commission. And we were partners with Netflix, the biggest media company in the world, who's a public company. And for anyone to suggest that this was in any way a rigged fight, they're either dumb or they're looking for attention. And I get it, like putting up posts that, proof it was rigged, this was rigged. That gets you good engagement. And a lot of people comment and a lot of people like and a lot of people share. And we're in an attention economy. People say outlandish things to bring awareness to themselves. But it's a sad state of society that's where people want to spend their time.
On Saturday, Mike Tyson posted something saying, I had been through all these health issues. I'm just happy I went 8 rounds in front of my kids. I'm so happy. Was any part of you considering the age, but what happened in May to his health, on that plane? Were you concerned for him? And did you know
No,
all that
because
stuff that he
honestly,
was talking about?
that sentiment that was shared with him by him on that post was never shared with us, right? We have the doctor's reports, we have the conversations with the doctors. That was something that we thought about, that he was, close to losing his life or whatever it was that he said in the post. I appreciate, there was a lot of emotion leading up to that event, and I appreciate the next day him reflecting on what he went through. But I can unequivocally say every single report we had from his team, every conversation we had with his doctors were nothing other than he is 100% going to be able to compete starting at the end of August, early September.
In the post-fight interview, he told me, yeah, I think I will fight again. And then he made the joke about Logan. And I don't know if the whole thing is a joke, but can I just ask you, do you have any interest in seeing Mike Tyson fight again?
It's not really my place to say that. I do believe that Mike Tyson has decided that he's had a great career, and he's going to focus on his entrepreneurial activities.
Okay.
But I can't speak for him or Kiki or Mike's team in terms of what they want to do next.
Okay. And we will get to Katie and Amanda, but I just want to continue with the Jake theme here. And so now one of the big questions is, all right, who's next? And there's a litany of options. And so I'll just ask the very straightforward question. Do you know who his next opponent is yet?
We do not, but what I do know is Jake is the face of boxing, no matter what anyone wants to tell you. Okay. And he may not be the face of boxing from being the most advanced boxer at this point in time, but the heavyweight champ of the world is calling him out. Artur Beterbiev, who's one of the pound for pound greats, is calling him out. Gervonta Davis is calling him out. Ryan Garcia is calling him out, right? Like Francis Ngannou, who Jake has supported time and time again, is putting up tweets talking about, I want to slap Jake Paul. Again, people want attention and engagement. I get it. That one actually, didn't really sit well with Jake, given how vocal Jake has been in supporting Francis. But there's no shortage of options of what Jake can do at the big level, and also at just like continuing to legitimize himself. People forget, like he fought a 17-2 Ryan Borland. That's a legit like fight for someone at Jake's level. The difference was Jake ended that dude in the first round, and that guy wasn't ready for the moment. Just like I said, Jake was ready for the moment with Mike Tyson, but many people are not ready for those moments. So we're going to continue to focus on building his career to gain the right experiences to obtain his ultimate goal, which is being a world champion. And we're also going to continue to do massive one-off events that capture the imagination of what's possible.
Is there a front runner at the moment?
I wouldn't say there's a front runner. There's multiple discussions happening.
Is there a short list?
Yes, there is a short list. Yes, Ariel.
Who is on the short list?
Not you or me.
Okay, perfect. Can you tell us any names?
No.
Okay.
I cannot tell you any names, but what I can tell you is Jake Paul's focus is on boxing. Jake Paul focuses on building most valuable promotions, right? Focusing on women's boxing, focusing on young prospects, and focusing on his own career. And this past Friday, our company's 3 years and 3 months old. Jake Paul helped put on one of the biggest sporting events in history, an event that, to be honest, UFC hasn't had that size of an event, and it's been in inception for 30 plus years. So we feel really good about where he's at professionally as a fighter and where the company is at in its maturation process.
I'll keep poking just a little bit if I can. He did talk a lot about Canelo, and I've said that I wouldn't be surprised as recently as yesterday that on our new show, Ariel and Ade on DAZN, I said, I think it's a real thing. Is it possible that Jake Paul fights Canelo Alvarez?
What did Ade say?
What did he say about that? He thought it was a bit of a crazy statement on my part, and didn't think that Jake would want to go down that path.
Yeah, so I saw that. That's the only clip I saw.
Ah, come on. Thanks a lot.
I swear to God, I saw that on social media. I think you guys clipped that out.
Yeah.
I was just shocked to say that Jake Paul wouldn't want that. Jake Paul, who like in his fourth fight fought a UFC champion and Tyron Woodley, who choked out Darren Till, right? Tyron Woodley. Jake Paul, who fought Anderson Silva, who beat Chavez Jr. Jake Paul, who just got in there with the king of violence on 4 weeks' notice when everyone said this is a dangerous fight. You really think Jake Paul's afraid to get in there with Canelo Alvarez? Like that's shocking to me that Ade said that because obviously he doesn't know Jake Paul the slightest.
Could I ask you though, 2025, is it a possibility, Canelo versus Jake Paul?
Absolutely.
Is it possible that Canelo's his next fight?
Not sure.
Okay, but it's a thing. This is not like pie in the sky. This is as real as ever.
I think look, we just put on the biggest event since the advent of cable for the combat sports, right? And so no matter what fighter you are, you have to look at that and say, that's a pretty special moment. That's a pretty special platform. Jake Paul doesn't need Canelo from a financial perspective, nor from like a belt perspective, because they're not going to fight for the belts that Canelo holds, right? If they were to
Sure.
fight. Canelo certainly doesn't need Jake Paul to make money either. So for me, if that fight was to happen, it has to be more than that. It has to be a desire to once again have the world stop and pay attention to this beautiful sport of boxing. Have the world look at it and say, wow, boxing is really back, and really bring other fighters into the fold there to help bring exposure to the sport like we just did with our event last Friday night. So I think the hurdle isn't going to be money. There's so much money in that fight. The hurdle is both sides understanding why they're really doing it if they end up doing it.
Do you have a choice? You don't have to reveal the choice, but in your mind, do you have someone who you'd like for Jake to fight next?
No, I mean there's several names that we're looking at. I think it comes back to, as I said, is it helping him on his path to become world champion? Is it helping us kind of disrupt boxing further? Is it just another massive moment for sports? Those are all the different variables that go into our considerations.
When do you expect him to fight again?
Anywhere from March to May would be the next fight.
And is there a chance that it is back on Netflix? Is that a possibility?
I mean, listen, I think I said to everyone going in, if I'm Netflix, I wouldn't do anything other than do this fight and then reassess. And if I'm Netflix now, I've reassessed and said, wow, that was extremely successful, beyond successful. So I would hope there's definitely a chance, yes, of doing another fight or two or three or many more on Netflix.
Okay, and just two more if I may. Do you have any idea if Canelo is interested right now in fighting him?
I can't speak to that.
Okay. There was a clip yesterday. Jake was on Impulsive with his brother Logan, and people were talking about the friction there and that maybe they were building to a fight. We played that clip, so we don't have to play it now. But then I countered with, well, actually, the interaction post Nate Diaz fight felt a lot more friction than the one yesterday when they were going back and forth about, him being at the event and not giving me props and whatnot. All to ask, is there a chance Logan could be on the docket for him in 2025?
I think maybe that's something that Logan would like to happen, right? Jake for the first time is probably ahead of his brother in terms of reach, in terms of awareness, in terms of popularity, in terms of engagement. And I think from a Logan perspective, who's ultra competitive, there is that tension. There is that my baby brother's taking over, and I need to teach him a lesson.
Oh my.
I wouldn't be surprised if that came into fruition
Wow.
at all.
How do you feel about that? Brother versus brother.
I have a very different relationship with my brother growing up than they do.
Right.
Obviously, myself and my brother have never been as successful as they were at age 16, 18, 22. So I can't speak to that dynamic. I mean, these are two of the greatest marketers, entrepreneurs, businessmen the world has ever seen underneath the age of 30, right? Like, you can't deny what these guys have done. Jake is 27, Logan is 28. The multiple businesses that they've built at this age. I, you know, uh, I can't speak to my relationship with my brother versus who these guys are. They've exceeded all boundaries of what brotherhood is and what success is.
Do you know if Jake's interested?
I think, listen, Jake, Jake will have to get to a place where he feels like he has to do it to set things right. And I'm not sure. I haven't had a discussion with him. I
Okay.
actually haven't. While I saw a clip out of your episode, I haven't seen the clip out of
Wow.
Paul.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm still holding on to the dream of
Let
Jake
me tell you
versus.
what I don't appreciate, though, actually, and
Oh,
before we move on, I don't appreciate you not doing the MVP face-to-face sit-down interview with Katie, Amanda, Jake, and Mike. And I know why you didn't do it, and I respect that, but I still think like massive missed opportunity for you and for us. But I do appreciate that you refuse to be paid by anyone other than the network. And in this scenario, MVP face to face wasn't something that Netflix was involved in. It was a straight MVP production, MVP expense, and that's why Netflix wasn't involved with you on it. But we did miss you on it, and I hope in future the face to face is owned by the media partner, so you can actually go back to your role of moderating those things because I think you do a great job.
thank you. I do love doing those, but I always made a promise after 2016 I would never get paid by a promoter. That's no disrespect to you. I appreciate the offer, and you know how much I adore Katie and Amanda, and that to me is
I
an honor.
know.
Getting to do the first one was an honor. But
Jake
Cam,
was like, "Why isn't Ariel doing this?" I said, "Because Ariel refused to get paid by us." He's like, "He doesn't like money." I said, "No, he never gets paid by us. He gets paid by DAZN or Netflix or Showtime,
the, the
and they're not paying for this."
the shame is I get accused of getting paid by you guys, but I don't actually get paid by you guys, so I'm like losing out on both ends. It's a real shitty situation. Shout out to Cameron though. I thought he did a great job.
Yeah.
For his first time doing something like that. One last one, if I may, on this particular subject. I'm still holding out the hope and dream of Jake KSI, and I know he has said a lot of things as well, and I know maybe they're going in completely different directions. But is there any chance of that in 2025?
I don't see it right now. I just think, Jake just weighed in at 227 pounds, and he wants to be a cruiserweight champion, and that's where the focus is. And I think they have a great like vocal fan base online, and we wish them nothing but success and continued prosperity in terms of what they're doing and hitting that specific demographic of entertainment. We're building a boxing platform that's very focused on women's boxing, focused on young athletes, and letting Jake kind of um, you know, run the front end of that spear, and that's really what our focus is on.
Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano are reaching Gotti Ward like territory in that every single round they compete in
A lot, a
is
lot more people watched Katie and Amanda than watched Gotti Ward. Yes.
of course, yes, absolutely. I just mean 20 rounds, each one better than the previous one. Incredible stuff, incredible drama. Obviously, your fighter, Amanda Serrano, falls short once again. Super close fight. A lot of people were upset about it. I'm sure you've watched it back. How do you feel about the scoring? Who do you think won?
So when I watched it in person, and we're watching from a specific angle, right? Every person who's watching it in the stadium, I thought it was a very close fight, but I thought Amanda should have won given the headbutts. When I watched it at home and got to appreciate the punch stats as well and see the round by round judging, I thought, given the point deduction, Amanda should have won, like more clearly than when I was there, right? I actually remember coming into the ring and you asked me what did I think, and I said I think they're going to give it to Katie unless they actually make an adjustment for the points that's appropriate. But when I watched it back, I definitely feel like Amanda won, but she did win, Ariel. Doesn't matter. Like, who cares? Okay, she took a loss on her record. In the world of mixed martial arts, the beauty of UFC is as long as you put on a valiant performance and people are excited, they're rearing back to come and watch you again. And in this instance, of course, the public perception was Amanda won. Of course, every celebrity in the world that was watching that was meaningful tweeted out or posted that Amanda won. Of course, if you look at all the online, journalism around it outside of Ireland, Amanda won. Even if you look at ESPN's rankings today that they came out with, they actually say Amanda won. It's an error, I'm sure, but it has Katie winning and it has Amanda winning. And that's an error of, someone actually thinking and typing something different than they should be. But my point to you is I'm not at all upset by the outcome of it in terms of the decision. It's okay. And it now just sets up Amanda Serrano for something even bigger after this.
I don't know if there's anything bigger than a trilogy. And I asked Eddie about it yesterday, and maybe it's if there's another Netflix card, but I'm just wondering, do you think that's possible? It felt to me like they couldn't have been further apart before this fight was made. Like, let's say there was no Tyson Netflix fight. It felt like she was fighting at 126, 3-minute rounds, and Katie was doing her thing at 140. But then all of a sudden this happens and it's big enough for them. Do you foresee a trilogy down the line in the not too distant future? Plus, let's be honest, Katie probably doesn't have many fights left. Neither does Amanda. That was her 51st pro fight.
Amanda's 36, just turned 36. I don't know when Katie turns 39. So different kind of age in terms of where they are in terms of their retirement, I guess, thought process. What did Eddie Hearn say?
Eddie said that he doesn't, because, I mentioned maybe the friction between MVP and Matchroom. He said, look, same thing to his credit that he said going in. This is a massive opportunity. We're not going to stand in the way. And, we hope that it does happen. But he didn't close the door. He didn't say we're up 2-0 and that's it. He left the door open, which I thought was promising. So I'm curious your take.
Yeah, my take is if Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor want to fight again, MVP, Jake Paul, and myself and our partners will do everything possible to make that happen and guarantee them the biggest payday in women's combat sports history. That's, the gold standard of women's combat sports is Ronda Rousey. She sold 56,000 tickets by herself in Australia against Holly Holm, who was fairly unheralded before she knocked out Ronda, right? And I think finally Amanda has reached that point, as has Katie to a certain extent, but Amanda's US based, which is a much bigger market. And so if they want to do it, Jake and I will do everything in our power to make it happen.
Lots of feathers in your collective caps. If you could get the Croke Park one done, I think that would be a massive one. Now, I know you're not Katie's promoter, but is there any part of you that would like to check that one off the list as well?
If Amanda is open to it, we will do everything we can. Jake has already promised that he would reach out to President Trump to help with that. Like one of the things we heard many times is, oh, the security costs are just too high. We don't care about the costs. We want to do disruptive mega events, and that would certainly be that. But I could imagine Amanda saying, why do you want me to go into the Lion's Den in front of whatever the capacity is there, 70, 80,000 people? How does that set me up for success? And so if that's her perspective, I fully understand it. And we, as I said, work with Katie and Amanda to get to the right outcome. I mean, we had a great experience with Katie and her team. They were tremendous to work with every step of the way. Katie is the lady of ladies, just like Amanda is. And Katie's team was responsive, was honest, was like just perfect in every step of this process. So we hope we get to work with them again.
And just for the record, Brian Peters, her manager, went out of his way to tell me the same thing about how you guys treated them and that he was really impressed with the whole week. That does lead to the friction maybe between you and Eddie. I have to be honest, when I was interviewing Katie, I wasn't all there focused on her because out of the corner of my eye, I did see a sort of brouhaha coming together in the ring, and then I saw you, and then I saw him, and I didn't know exactly what was going on, some words being exchanged. And so can I ask your side of the story there? There's some videos that have emerged of you guys kind of getting into it a little bit, not physically, but just emotionally, and I've seen the Eddie video of him celebrating and just words being exchanged. Your take on what transpired and any regret in the aftermath?
I think my only regret is giving Katie Taylor the option to have Eddie Hearn in the ring. We don't have promoters in the ring. We don't walk with our fighters. We don't sit and take their moment in the ring ahead of the fight. Just a different philosophy, right? Very, very different philosophy. But when it got to fight day, I said to my team, because Matchroom had reached out at least 100 times around Eddie Hearn having access to the ring, that if Katie wants Eddie in the ring, just let me know. And I didn't get a message from Katie, but I got a message from Brian saying Katie would like it. And within, I think, 30 seconds, I said, absolutely, no problem. Having seen how he behaved in the ring, I kind of wish I didn't do that. But end of the day, we're about the fighters. And if that made Katie happy, great. I think what's really telling is if you go to the Matchroom social media handles post-fight, they didn't post Katie Taylor. They posted the 126 fighter that they have from Sky Nicholson. That's who they posted. How is that possible? Like, why are you positioning her against Amanda versus celebrating Katie's massive moment? That's a very different philosophy than how we think about it.
And so, does any of this, do you think, get in the way of a?
But Ariel, do you understand what I'm saying there? Like, how does her promotion not recognize her massive victory on the biggest women's event in history ever? How?
Mm-hmm.
But instead, you're positioning this fighter who's never sold a ticket in her life, hasn't headlined an event in her life, hasn't fought in her home country once, as fight Amanda Serrano next. Like, what am I missing there?
No, I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't check their YouTube channel or their socials afterwards.
My
But
team certainly did.
okay, and by the way, what happened in the ring was that that video that emerged of I think a member of your team saying Eddie can't go up at the press conference. Was it because of what happened in the ring?
Not at all. Look at our press conferences. Outside of me sitting there with Jake, because Jake is a co-owner and he's there as an owner and as a fighter, we don't have promoters there. It's all about the fighter. Like, I don't want to hear Eddie Hearn tell me about the fight. I want to hear Katie Taylor. That's like, sure, there is a very small, passionate boxing fan base that knows who Eddie Hearn is, right? But the majority of the world have no idea who Eddie Hearn or Nakisa is, like zero, zilch. And why do I want to take their time to hear from Eddie Hearn? I want them to hear from Katie Taylor and Shadeja Green and Bruce Carrington and Lucas Body and Mario Barrios and Jake Paul and Amanda Serrano. That's who I want them to hear from.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you were going to say more there. That's why.
No, I mean, my point is my team was basically saying like, hey, we don't have promoters on the table. It's about Katie. And then ultimately, he ended up on the press conference table, and that's okay too, no problem. But philosophically, very different approach.
At this point, how many?
Just because you talk a lot about your fighters doesn't mean that your fighters transform, do well and sell.
Mhm.
There's this. I've seen Boots Ennis talk about, oh, I don't need to talk now because Eddie Hearn does the talking for me. That's the wrong way to look at it, because no one is paying Eddie Hearn to watch you for you to fight because Eddie Hearn says X, Y, or Z. No one. You have to build yourself. You have to sell yourself. You have to make fans connect with you as an athlete and want to spend their time, attention, and pocket dollars on you. That's how you need to be. We, as the brand behind you, need to do a great job of positioning you, marketing you, putting you in the right place, telling engaging stories, constantly pushing you on social media, which is the most important form of communication in the world today. But the fighter has to do their part, and MVP is all about the fighter.
Last thing on this fight, I just want to get your take on it because a lot of people were mad that Jordan Maldonado said that she was leading with the head, that she was fighting dirty. I know Amanda has since sort of apologized for saying that in her post afterwards, that she had the utmost respect and whatnot. Do you feel after watching it on TV that this was a calculated effort on Katie's part to lead with the head, to headbutt, to cut her open?
Absolutely a calculated effort to use her head to her advantage. Absolutely not a calculated effort to cut Amanda Serrano. Those are two different things,
Mm-hmm.
right? At the end of that first round, Katie was stunned by an Amanda punch. Everyone saw it. It's on, 125 million have watched the overall event. 74 million have watched that fight. Everyone saw that. I think she adjusted her strategy and did so effectively. But of course, there was a lot of headbutts as a result of that strategy. And one of those headbutts led to one of the gnarliest cuts you've seen in women's boxing, right? And I think if they would have called the fight in round 5 or 6, I think Amanda would have won. But Amanda's a warrior, and she wasn't stopping. And Katie continued to target the cut, which I don't think is being dirty. I think of that as being tactically smart, right? Like I can't fault her for that. Like it's on tape. She was going for it over and over again, same spot with her head, with her hands, with her glove. So yes, I think there was a focused effort on her to use her head to her advantage. And yes, I think she never intended to cut Amanda. Katie Taylor is not looking to, physically uh, harm Amanda in that manner. Never, never did I think that.
Three last quick ones. How many fighters on the MVP stable, and are you looking to expand in 2025?
Yeah, we're officially working with 12 fighters, of which three are women, right? Which I'm very proud of. That ratio is going to increase further. And in 2025, you're going to see us expand that meaningfully.
Okay. Um, Two more. Jake Paul, Conor McGregor. Any interest, any chance? I know Conor tweeted that he spoke to and he posted a picture of, I think, some famous politician being Jake's next opponent. He was just stirring the pot or responding to Jake, but I know you have a relationship with Conor. There it is. What's that guy's name again? I know that guy. What is he? He's the guy. He's the speaker. Mitch McConnell. There he
It's
is.
supposed to be me.
No, no. He said, "This is your next
Oh.
opponent. This is your next opponent." That's the joke. Mitch McConnell. Connor, Jake, does this ever happen? Obviously, it can't happen while he's under contract with the UFC,
One,
right?
he's under contract, so there's never been any discussions around it. Two, I love Conor McGregor, always have. I was there when he was signed to the UFC. I structured his first major deal. We flew to Ireland to see him to get him to resign. Um, I think he's one of the greatest, sportsmen that the world has ever seen, and I respect him and his team highly. If he's ever not under contract, and I've said this to some folks that have asked, I think Jake Paul, Conor McGregor is the only fight that can come as close to Mike Tyson in terms of global relevancy.
Mm.
Global relevancy. I believe Jake Paul, Canelo Alvarez is a bigger money fight, for example. But I think in terms of every part of the globe paying attention as much as that they did with Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, that's Jake Paul, Conor McGregor. Because Conor is a global star, Jake Paul is a global star. And that's a recipe for a stop the world moment. And look, maybe one day we'll see it if he's ever out of contract with the UFC. Maybe one day the UFC will say it makes sense to do this, and we'd be happy to explore that as well. They're a public company; they have a responsibility to their shareholders to do what's right for the business. And so, it's not out the realm of possibility. But Connor doesn't need it, Jake doesn't need it, and it goes back to what I said about Canelo. It's about what's your motivation to do something like that. I look at Mike Tyson. He didn't need this fight. He didn't need the money. Mike Tyson's never been wealthier. He made a lot of money when he was young, but he was spending it and he was being taxed in different ways, legally and illegally. He's been making unbelievable money for the past 7 or 8 years. This wasn't a money play for Mike Tyson. This was about creating legacy, creating history. Ariel, how crazy is it that the greatest fighter of all time didn't have his biggest fight in terms of live attendance, in terms of gate, in terms of viewership until he was 58?
Mm-hmm.
And that's because he had the right dance partner, because he was dancing a lot better and faster and more powerful when he was in his 20s and his 30s, right? And people thought he was the greatest fighter in the world. You bring back Michael Jordan right now, he's not going to break those records that he had before. But Mike Tyson did because he had the right opponent, the right matchup. And I think Jake Paul, Conor McGregor has that same capability.
Last quick one. Any interest in Andrew Tate, Jake Paul?
Love Andrew Tate. He's good man in many ways in terms of his desire to give back to the world. And I don't know where his head's at in life in terms of what he wants to do.
Okay. Well, you didn't answer the question. Do you have any interest in it?
I don't know. I mean, Andrew has messaged me over the past few days, and we haven't had that discussion, to be honest with you. And I'm not sure if that fight makes sense for Jake, given where his career is at right now in terms of boxing. And I'm
Okay.
not sure that fight transcends across different like that. That definitely for the young male demo, that's a massive fight, right? Massive fight. But I'm not sure how it moves outside of that. So I just have to spend time with Andrew and Jake and see if it's something that they want to pursue.
Nakisa, thank you very much. Congratulations to you and the team. Great event. Looking forward to what you guys are doing in 2025.
Thank you, Ariel. Appreciate the time. Good to see you.
There he is, Nakisa Bidarian, co-founder of Most Valuable Promotions. Massive event for them. Thanks for watching this video. Hey, before you go, do me a favor, hit that sub button, give us a thumbs up, hit the little bell thingy as well. Leave us a nice comment or two. We appreciate you all very much.